Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Lisa Oligas. In this edition, we learn about the CASA program. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. Volunteers work with neglected or abused children who are in foster care or otherwise involved in the court system. We'll hear from coordinators about the construction of a new training facility and visit with a volunteer advocate about the rewards of getting involved and learn how you too can help change a child's life. First, we hear from a volunteer who understands the needs of these kids because of her own personal life story. Let's listen as Samantha McDaniel shares her CASA connection.
As a CASA, I visit with my children, or child. Some people get one, some people get multiple. And I visit with them. I talk to them about their school, their day, their friends, their family that they're with, how they're feeling. Sometimes we just sit and talk. Sometimes they just tell me things that they're happy about or that they're proud of, or things that went really well. I had a difficult childhood myself. Now, mind you, it was back in the 80s and 90s, so we didn't have CASAs back then. And I think that it would have been, would have definitely made a difference in my life, and as far as feeling like there was an adult, someone there that cared about me, someone that was my voice when nobody would listen. So that's why foster care and children are so close to my heart. In addition to helping the kids kind of deal with everything that they're going through, I also help the foster parents. Sometimes, being a foster parent is sometimes difficult, especially when you're dealing with multiple children and if you have children of your own on top of it. So when they have questions or they just need somebody to vent to, somebody to talk to, just somebody to tell even about their day, I'm there for that as well. Now, a lot of people sometimes think of foster kids as little ones, right? But that's not the case. When I was going through what I was going through, I was a teenager. And so teenagers lots of times are even more difficult because they've been through so much in their life, right? And they need just as much love and care and so on and so forth as everybody does. And they're older, so they already kind of know, what's going on. So I actually deal with a lot of the teenage side of it. I feel like I can relate to that because of what I went through. So they're not just little kids, they're teenagers. And being a teenager just in the normal world is like, gosh, being a teenager is rough. So imagine what it's like being a teenager in foster care and not feeling like you have any adult. Like there's nobody there that really cares about you, and that when you are trying to tell somebody what you want or what you feel, nobody cares. I ask them, what do you want? What do you want me to say to the judge? Is there something that you would like them to know? And then they tell me that, and then I relay it to them so they know that I am their voice and that they have a voice. We have 25% of these kids currently have CASAs. 25%. So you think, 25%, that's pretty good, right? But 450 kids, 25% is not that much. So when you donate to CASA and you give that gift, then you allow for more of us to be able to do what we do. Give a gift, change a life, change a child's life, change your life in the process.
Our first guests today are Jasper County CASA Executive Director Debbie Kolkebeck and CASA Development Coordinator Kelly Hartley. Thank you both for being here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
So let's talk about how CASA works. And these are advocates who go within and help in the court system. But how do you pair up a child with a volunteer adult? How does that work?
That's a great question. We work with the juvenile office to place the kids with a volunteer. Our program director and our CASA, our staff, they match the kids with our volunteers. To become a volunteer, first of all, you apply. Mm-hmm. So there's a lengthy application process. There's a background check. There's an interview. And then you attend our training session. And those are all opportunities for our staff to get to know each volunteer, and they start to think of who they'd be a good match for, they'll ask for their feedback, like, do you prefer, can you connect better with a teenager? Some people prefer that, and some people would say, no, give me the baby to rock, or a toddler. So we worked with the juvenile office to match up our volunteers with the kids who are in foster care who need advocates.
So Debbie, talk about what is the role of the advocate in the courtroom and then outside the courtroom as well.
Okay, we serve a very vital and important role as a consistent person all the way through the child's time in the court system, and that means getting to know the child, the situation that they were removed from their home because of, where they're placed now, who their other supports in their lives are, and what barriers exist for them finding a safe and permanent home. So we do that by, outside the courtroom, we do that by meeting with the kids at least twice a month, doing everything from cheering them on at sports events to playing at the park, meeting at the foster home, going out to dinner, just anything that you would do to get to know and build a relationship with the child. Of course, age dependent,
Right.
depending on the age of the child. So during that process, as we get to know the child, and sometimes it's a sibling group, get to know their wishes and their needs, then we write our court report. And that's where we come into the court setting or into any team meetings with the child's legal team to advocate for, first, their needs for safety and any services they may need. A lot of our children obviously have been very neglected. So there may be medical needs, educational needs, and we make sure all those services are being provided as well. And then write a very detailed court report that the judge, as well as the parent's attorney, if the parents are involved, and everyone involved in the case will read to help make that decision about what will become the permanent family for that child. So our court reports go into everything from the child's wishes to the child's likes. We really work to make sure we show the whole picture of what they need developmentally, what they need emotionally, and what they need for safety and for the future. So
Do CASAs even go into the courtroom
Yes.
and attend the hearings?
we do. Whenever there's a hearing about the child, we go to that and may be called upon by the judge to explain something that's been in their court report, and to be there as a support for the foster family and the biological family during that time in court as well. And then additionally, there are team meetings where we would meet at Children's Division or other locations to be there to represent the child as well.
Can the CASA have a role in the outcome of that child's future?
Oh yeah, I see it every day. That is one of the beauty parts of my job, is I get to see, I call it the fingerprints, the fingerprints of what the advocates do that makes a difference in the child's future. From everything from make sure that where they're placed and going from there is safe, as well as finding other supports that maybe in the child's life that no one's considered. That could be a possible placement or adoptive home or a guardianship for them. So I see that in helping them stay in school and helping them really stay educationally. We make a big difference.
Really?
Our advocates are at all the IEP meetings and are also making sure. A lot of our kids transfer schools often, Lisa. Sometimes usually up to 5 times.
Wow.
Yeah, so making sure their school records go with them, that they get settled. CASAs are there on the first day of school to make sure, and they talk to counselors. With our court order, we can talk to anyone who's involved in the children's
Amazing.
lives. Yeah, we call it the superpower because you are entitled to all that information. It's court ordered so that we can make the right recommendation for the child. We need all the information so we can go into the schools, talk to teachers, counselors, help them understand as well what's going on with the
That's
child.
got to be very helpful so that you can talk to the right people who see that child in all different kinds of environments.
Yes, think of your own children. If you had children going into a new school, you would want to make sure that things are going well for them. So that's the role that we can really help fill there as well.
So you have a new facility. Tell us about that. And that's it's a training center, but the kids are also going to be welcome there.
Yeah, we call it the CASA Training and Connection Center on East 20th Street. And it has been a dream of mine for about 3 years now. Our board set a big goal for us when we first started in 2019, is that we would have a permanent place, a permanent home that kids could feel welcome, the advocates could feel supported, and that we could really make those connections to help heal. I was out today, and we're pouring concrete today for our parking lot, and it feels like the dream's really coming true. here in the middle of this month. So we're super excited. The biggest part of the building and the heart of the building is the Connection Center, where we'll have a full kitchen so kids can learn to cook.
Yeah,
Or we always say we can smell the cookies baking.
That's great.
Because we want it to be a really warm and inviting place.
Kelly, let's talk a little bit about training, because there's a little bit of a cost involved in this training, which is something that donations can help provide. But what is that training? What is the background check so that people can get an idea of the commitment for that?
Sure. The training is about 30 hours. It is mandated by CASA National, so it's something we have to do. We do 15 hours in the classroom, and that's over like 5 weeks, about 3 hours for 5 weeks. Then there's an online piece of that you can do in between classes, and you just do it on your own during the week. And during that time, like I said, there's also a lot of interaction between our staff and the volunteers. It's a really interactive coursework, and you can get to know, you really get to know the volunteers, and you can, start to form who you think is going to be a good match, who they'll be a good match for. So that's the training, and there's a background check. And the cost, we talk about the cost that's associated with it. Wow, we have probably over $1,000 invested in the training per volunteer, but the training also continues, it moves forward. We continue to support them. So there's continuing education that's required. We require at least one, it's 12 hours, but we say 1 hour a month, and our staff does that. So the support continues. Each volunteer is assigned to a coordinator who is their support role, who's their support person.
Because there may be a situation they may not feel comfortable handling it. I need advice. What if the child tells me this?
There's always something new, so they're there to help them navigate the court process, and they're great. Yeah, they help them navigate the whole system for sure.
So what's the benefit to the community as a whole when by having the system in place, and to the court system and how it works?
We fill a unique role because the one volunteer assigned to a child or a sibling group has the time that really the system, child welfare system, does not have. All of our caseworkers are stressed and overworked, and we can really help with that to be able to be there for that child. We have one child and one family to consider and to focus on. So we really help with that, and our benefit is seeing the child's future change, whether that's I'd love to tell stories all day about the families that have been reunified, or the new families that have been formed with CASA at the heart of that as well, and the birthday celebrations, and just the chance to be a kid. And feel safe and feel like somebody's really watching out for you.
Donations make it all happen, so you would encourage folks to give?
Yes, we always have a need for more things. Right now we're doing Christmas roundup for gifts for our kids, as well as training class starts in January. So I would encourage anyone that's interested if you're interested in being a volunteer, let us know, or donations on our website.
All right. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll visit with CASA volunteer Jessica Shear, who prepared a special video for the CASA Light of Hope campaign about the process and importance of CASA volunteers.
Well, it was twofold for me. Suzanne Hall, she's one of the board members, she approached me about it. I didn't know anything about being in CASA, but she just became very passionate about it and was discussing it with me. And she was discussing it with me because my husband and I adopted our 3 children. We didn't have a CASA, and I'd never heard of it before. I think it would have been huge because they would have known us, our hearts, and would have known the kids a little bit better. I just think it would have worked fabulously. Honestly, Suzanne's pitch to me was just so strong. Like, she was very passionate about it and just drew on my heartstrings. And it just was an easy decision to call Debbie and speak with her. It'll be 3 years this coming September, and it has been a wild ride. They've been in almost, I think, 7 different homes. It's been very frustrating for them and for anybody in the case. We've been through 2 caseworkers now. It's been a lot of trials, ups and downs. The younger one, he's off the walls. He loves, he's onto this and just really fun to be around. The older boy is very thoughtful and likes to play catch, just kind of a slower feel for him. Yeah, they're great kids. So I just go and spend time with him, and especially with the older boy, I tell him what I'm there for and that I'm your voice. Tell me what you want, what's your desire, and then just really establishing a relationship with them, having fun with them, sharing experiences, and just being consistent.
Some of the best stories I hear from volunteers are, we sat and played Monopoly and they told me all about, this club at school, or, what they want to be when they grow up. So just having an adult to sit and listen to a child who maybe hasn't been listened to through the situation they're going through is really impactful. I knew nothing about the child welfare system before becoming a volunteer, and Chelsea and Debbie really prepared me for it. And then when I was sworn in and could become a CASA, Chelsea mentioned there's a job opening too. So I applied and got to be a volunteer coordinator. As Courtney's volunteer coordinator, I am there to support her in her advocacy for the children on her case.
For me, it just helps me know I'm not an island. I have somebody with me, backing me and helping me along this road.
We train community members to advocate for children in foster care. We teach you all about the child welfare system and some of the challenges families face who may be in that system, and then we're there with you every step of the way.
Roller coaster ride of emotions. Honestly, there's been times where, we thought we were going in a really good direction and then it kind of flip-flopped on us and it didn't go so well. But now we're at a point where, we have lots of happy moments together and they seem happy and stable, and that makes me feel really good. A safe and fun place for them to spend time together, cook, play, whatever, that would mean a lot. Because sometimes it is hard to get one-on-one time with the children or have, a clean place or whatever that might be. So that means a lot.
You hate that kids are in this spot. And so it feels like a big responsibility and also a really big honor to be able to help in any way possible.
My hesitation initially was, am I going to get too emotionally attached? And yes, you are. I think you're going to get emotionally attached to these kids, and that's the point, is to have a relationship with them. And I would say that it's absolutely worth your time and effort to be a part of children's lives. They need that person.
In my experience with my volunteers, that CASA has continued to be a support for either the biological parents or the adoptive parents and that child. Even after they've left the system. All of that support helps our program recruit, train, and then support our volunteers. And the strength of our program directly impacts their advocacy and results for kids. So it all kind of follows down that chain of, we want to make sure that those kids have the absolute best advocacy possible and that their best interest is always being served. And supporting us helps ensure that.
The kids are super resilient, but it does a toll on them. And again, just having one person that does stay consistent is very big for them, because so many people are in and out of their lives, asking them really hard questions on a consistent basis. And I just think recognizing that it's, from a child's perspective, it's very challenging and hard to not have that stability all the time.
The CASA can step in and find out those details and knowledge of the children and make sure the judge and the court has the whole story. Especially too, depending on the age of the child, you can ask, what do you want the judge to know? And that wouldn't really be possible without the CASA. That's the way for the child's voice to really be heard in court.
It makes me feel good, to be a part of their lives and to be helping, even if it's just a small amount, and hope that I'm doing some good for a couple of kids.
Welcome back to Newsmakers, where we are bringing focus to the importance of volunteers with the CASA program. Joining me now is someone you might recognize from local television news on KSN 16, where she is a news anchor. We welcome CASA volunteer Jessica Shear.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. Thank you for that lovely video. I know you prepared that.
Yeah,
it was so informative.
Yes, it was so amazing to kind of meet the other volunteers as well. You don't get to see them that often, so I got to meet them, talk to them, and Courtney, of course, while she was kind of explaining her case and those kinds of things. So it was just really a special thing to do. I was privileged and honored to be able to make that for them for their main fundraising event. So it was really cool.
But you are an advocate yourself, so tell us about your experience. How long have you been a CASA?
So I became a CASA, I was sworn in, well, I started in like February taking the class, and then I was sworn in April of 2020, and then was given the case that I have now still to this day, 2.5 years later, a pair of siblings. So I have been their advocate ever since late April of 2020.
So it does show us that the court system, it does take time.
It does.
And for those kids, you said they're 9 and 11?
Yes.
That can be the unknowing. The unknown can be difficult for kids as well. So what are some of the challenges of being an advocate, if you don't mind sharing that, when it comes to relating to these kids?
Well, there are challenges, and I want to kind of give that really great answer, which CASA training prepares you so that there aren't very many challenges. But the challenges would be, maybe just meeting with them, figuring that out in your schedule. But I think Debbie and Kelly were so greatly saying that the supervisors or the volunteer coordinators, there we go, we rely on them a lot to be like, hey, I'm having, what's a good event that I can go to with my kids, next week or something. And there's that kind of stuff that helps overcome those challenges.
What are some of the questions you might get from kids when it comes to helping them understand what's going on in their life, helping them understand this whole process of being in the courts?
Some of the personal questions I got was, what's going on? You got to think they're 9 and 11 now, but when they started, they hadn't had birthdays yet, and they were 6 and 9. So they were very young. They're going through those formative years. So I still have a very interesting case where the older sibling is very much well aware of what's going on, and younger siblings going, hey, where's my mom? What's going on? So those are the questions you get, and we try to explain it to them between the foster family. They've been in 2 foster families now, between the foster family and me as well, just explaining, this is what's going on. What do you want the judge to know? What do you want? So those are sort of the things we have to kind of answer for them in an age-appropriate way, which is also kind of an interesting factor as well.
So do you ever sometimes talk with one without the other to make it easier on them?
Yeah, so especially at the beginning of their case, because they did both each want something different as their outcome, just really talking about them about what their concerns were. And I took each one of them aside. Now, lately, now that we've been in this for 2.5 years, they both are kind of on the same page, so to speak. But just taking them one by one, what are your concerns? And tell me about what's going on. And what do you want the judge to know, as they were saying as well? Just sometimes that personal tidbit. And I will put that in my report too. This one wants this, but this one wants the other. And, obviously the court doesn't follow just what the kids want. We're always going to do what's best for the children and for the child. But, at least I feel like it was still my duty to say, this is still what the child is saying. So
Tell me about some of the things you might do together with the child so that other folks who might volunteer go, oh, okay, I can do that.
Yeah, I've gone to birthday parties before. I've gone to the park before. One time they were at an event with their foster family at one of our cities in Jasper County that has a square. And so I was able to walk around the square with them, you know, kind of one in each hand. It was real cute because the foster family knows that I wanted to have some alone time with them because, you know, sometimes kids aren't going to open up in front of their foster family or their biological family, you know, those sorts of things. And so we walked around the square and did some things at that event around the square. Oh, you want to go ride that ride? Okay, go grab your tickets. Let's go ride a ride, you know. So those sorts of things. And you just kind of get creative. A lot of times I'm just in the front yard at the foster family home, just playing with them outside. I think at one point they had a trampoline, you know, just watching them on the trampoline while they bounce. So you just have to kind of get creative. And I know some advocates go get ice cream with some of their older ones. You know, it's just, you just kind of get creative.
How does that connection you're making help? And I mean, do you feel like the kids are more willing to talk to someone that, oh wait, they're not, you know, they're not my new foster mom? And do they sometimes maybe worry about sharing something with them that you're maybe more of an objective person?
Yeah, and I think that's the point of CASA. I mean, we're told that during our training as well. We're the constant adult that's following them through this, you know, life change that they're going through or life situation even. And, you know, my 2 CASA children have had maybe 5 caseworkers.
Wow.
They've had 2 foster families, which is stunning. It's, as they were saying, it's sometimes even more than that. But I've been there through the very beginning. And there is times where, you know, we've maybe changed a caseworker and they're coming to me saying, hey, what happened at this one date that this thing, you know, the other caseworker had this, what happened, you know? And so I'm then emailing or talking on the phone, telling them, you know, hey, this is what happened. And that's why this decision was made for this certain aspect of whatever they're going through.
Yeah. To wrap it up, how is it rewarding for you?
Oh my goodness. You know, it's a very personal thing for me. How I originally got started, I'll try to make it real quick since we're wrapping it up. I don't have any children but I love children. I've taught dance since I was 18 years old. And, you know, Debbie and at the time Chelsea were the only 2 going through, you know, media appearances and those things. And they said, and they were talking and I was like, well, I'd like to get involved, but I'm not really ready to foster or adopt or anything yet as single, you know. And they said, well, this at least gets you to know what the, you know, what the system is like. And so that's sort of what I did. But long answer to your question, it's rewarding because it sort of fulfills just something in my heart for the love of kids and just kind of fulfills, you know, that like hole that was there for a little bit.
What reactions do you get from the kids? I mean, are there hugs?
There are, yeah. The foster family usually has to say, no, don't run and knock her over, you know, so let's be calm when she arrives. So it's very interesting. Yeah, they do.
Excellent. Well, we hope others will volunteer. We've got
It's rewarding.
the phone number or the website that folks can go to. Easy process for you?
It was. I mean, there is the class that you have to kind of go through, the training.
Yeah.
But then you set your schedule of meeting with the kids from there. So that's, your time commitment is really dependent on your own schedule.
Well, Jessica, thanks again for all you're doing for kids.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here and sharing your role. We hope others join the effort to change a life. For Newsmakers, I'm Lisa Oligas.